Hello and welcome to day 2 and day 3 of building an extra room in our small UK city garden. Here's a quick preview of what's to come in today's episode. So it's mostly going to be digging. So I'm going to speak to you a little bit about the process of getting this done. Foundations are going to be the key element for your project, for your home extension. And what we needed to do was to go down at least 1 meter. So in this episode, you're going to see how this kind of perspires. And also we have got builders in who are doing a lot of this work for us. So I'm basically just keeping an eye on them and making sure we're doing what we need to do. So how this works is they already have experience and they know what they need to do, which is good. So all I'm doing is checking the original paperwork and seeing what's going to be going where. It's a fairly straightforward extension. If you copied in on the first episodes, if you saw the first episodes, episode 1, day 1, and then the intro, I basically explained it's a 3 meter wide by 6 meter long narrow extension. It's planned to be like a studio extra room, utility room. We haven't really decided what the internal use is going to be yet, but it needs to be extra space. We took down our original shed, which was here, which we built about 10 years ago, and you'll see that this the ground has already got slabs on there. So if you remember previously, I did a little project where we filled the gaps on the slabs because we got weeds growing, and I did that here. So I'll show you a little update on that as well. So you can see here that this is day 1. This is the plans. So the plans are in a waterproof envelope. So we've got that and the details on the back as well. So as the builders are building, they know exactly what to refer to with all the measurements on. So there's a really good way of measuring this. It's so precise. Ancient Greeks used to do it. Greeks, the ones that built the pyramids. Yeah, this is how you measure it. So you don't need a laser, you don't need a measuring tape, you just need to do what I did here. You'll get exactly what you need to do and measure it out to the millimeter. And this is a pro way of doing it. Seek your own advice. I'm not liable if you get it wrong. I just thought I'd put that in there. So yeah, you'll see here, this is basically making sure what is on the plans is what we're expecting to happen. It's always a good point during the process to double check, triple check, just in case things aren't going to plan. So you'll notice here, I'm not that tall, but I can stand up to my knee. It needs to go down to about 1.2 meters. This is down to until you get solid foundation. So here's our first inspector coming to the most important inspector, making sure he's happy with everything going on. So at the end of the first day, they took down the shed, they took down the fence, and they took half of this, you'll see, is like about 500 mil deep. And day 2 is when they got the second trench taken out. So what they're doing is they're using a wheelbarrow, and I like the way they did this. Some people may think you should have had a machine, but these guys don't need machines. They're like the machines themselves. So we've got some space here. You could get skips and put all the dirt and mud into the skips. However, they came up with a better idea. A grabber can come and take up to 3 skips at a time, and you basically pay similar price to what a skip would be. So that was more of a sensible way of doing this. So that was a bit of a help, really. The mud will be sitting there for a bit, but we have got the space for it off the street to be kept, so it's fine. And you'll see here it's a clay subsoil, using like a pickaxe, Minecraft style pickaxe to loosen up the soil, the clay, and they're using spades to use a wheelbarrow to basically move it out the way. The old fence was actually not really in the middle. A lot of that old fence was already on our side, so we measured up and checked the boundaries and made sure that we stuck to the lines where it needs to be. It's a good thing to mention at this point, make sure you're ready. Before this point, you will let your neighbors know what's going on, and there's normally a neighborhood party wall agreement that you give them. What that basically says is that we're planning to do some work. We're going to be doing it on the boundary of our fence, and if you have any issues or you feel like you need to discuss something, let me know if there's any problems or if you want anything adjusted. And basically it's like an agreement that they just tick a box to say they're perfectly fine with it, and if there's any problems you get a mediator involved and they can find out if there needs to be something needs to happen. But the neighbors were fine. We mentioned that my old shed that I'm taking down, I'm going to rebuild half of that shed for them because they wanted it for their bikes. So that's basically like a thank you for them to put up with 2 months worth of noise and mess and stuff. So look after your neighbors and try to do it in a way that doesn't cause anybody, harm basically, or they're not happy with noise or whatever. So you'll see, this is like the second day where they basically dug down deeper So day one was when they took the shed down. Day two is when they did half of the foundations. And I did think it would be good to get a machine, something to help them, like a digging thing. But they said it makes more mess. And this way we can just make sure it's precise and it's not that big. I think they're used to making bigger extensions. But yeah, they had their own secret sauce that they used between each of these. I'll show you a preview of that further on in the episodes, and it gives them a bit of a boost. It's like a Red Bull, but Red Bull on wings, Red Bull on Red Bull kind of thing. And it's nuggets of gold is what I call them. So yeah, they use those just to keep them going. It's like a chewing type tobacco, I think it is, or something. But yeah, it kept them going. So yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, the guys are full of energy. There's quite a lot of grafting and hard work. So I'm pleased that we had guys doing this for us. If you're not that fit and you're not regularly doing exercise, then you will feel this the day after. But they basically went 6 meters right up to the wall on the left hand side. So that's going to be the back side of the extension wall. That's going to be the tallest part of the extension. And what that means is it's the tallest part because it's going to be about 4 meters high, and then it slopes into my garden at the lower point, which is about 3 meters. So you will see this as we go along, and it'll be interesting for you to see each step of the process. But this seemed to be doing okay so far. We got a bit of rain. It wasn't forecast, but we did get a bit of rain, which stopped play for about half an hour. So that put them back a bit. But overall, we're on day 2 of the actual build, and I think by day 3 the foundations will be all ready. So I've already messaged the architect to say we can have the inspector come to check the foundation holes. So what happens is at this point, when you've made these holes to the sufficient depth and you get to a point where you've got good soil, if you're not getting good soil, you will go down a bit further, and what will happen is the cement will then come in. But before the cement comes in, the inspector basically says, yes, okay, these are the right amount of foundation depths, and you can go and continue with the pouring of cement. So that would be like the day 3 or 4 in our case. So once the cement is poured, what will then happen is these will all cure, and then we'll look at getting the damp proof membrane done. So like basically a couple of layers of damp proof, and also additional midsection, like the lower floor being damp proofed as well. So you'll see here in the further corner away, you can see they're starting to take the corner of the wall out, which would be the far side, and that actually links into our existing wall to make it kind of make the best use of the space. So you'll see they've got a lot of rubbish here. They're putting this all on the outside and making a large pile, which then will be taken up with the digger truck. You can see here now, this is a view from the garden neighbour's fence. You can just about see me putting plastic over because it started raining. So that's going to be the far end wall. So they took a little L shape out there, took all the slabs out, and that would be another 6 meter wall along that side, and that would be foundations again. So they started cutting that out. So in real time, it took about 4 hours to dig 1 meter into clay subsoil and 6 meters long and about 500 mil wide. So that took them about 4.5 hours. And then today they were able to do half of the other side as well. So by tomorrow they'll have that done, and then the top to make it into a big large U as you look at it from the camera. And I was just keeping stuff clean and brushing around them just to keep like the mud at bay, because when it starts raining, everything starts sticking and clogging. They did have a little fire on, which kept them going, because these are cold days. If you look at temperatures now, we're in January. 14th of Jan is today, and this is when this work is being done, 14th of Jan 2024. So what's happened is, as it rained, things are getting muddy and it's cold as well. So they had a little fire going on in the corner, which kept a bit of warmth and kept the chill out of it. So it kept them kind of basically working. You can see here they're kind of using the pickaxe, loosening up the clay, and then slowly taking out wheelbarrow at a time. And that's it seems to be like they've got a system going. They take it in turns, and they're doing it. It's 2 workers really, and they've got the main gaffer who comes around just to make sure they're following the process. This is the view from the neighbour's garden. You can see a bit of fire going there in like a large barrel. And these are the foundations on each side of the extension, which should be our walls, and then they're going to join them together at the top. So when they join them up at the top, it'll basically complete the work required for the foundations. You'll see that they've taken it in steps. They've taken it down a section at a time. It's basically about 1 meter deep, just over 1 meter deep, and the inspector will come and have a look at it and then approve it. Remember, in the resources section, I will include a link to supporting documents. So if you go to the description, you'll see some information, and you can follow along. If you're doing an extension, it'll basically give you all the details that I went through, questions and answers, frequently asked questions, details about builders, and like all the regulations and things. So it's actually an article that I've put together to support this, powered by trustedcreators.org, so be sure to check that out. You can see as they're piling up the rubbish, it's actually piling up here. Luckily we have space off street to keep this, and then a picker can come. So here's the moment of truth when they join the two together and they start digging down. So you can see with the slabs, there's like a plastic sheet under the slabs, and then the soil which stops weeds growing. So I mentioned in a previous video on this channel where you can stop weeds growing through, and also the cement filling the gaps. But you can see they're going through here, joining this up, and this was over 2 days, so it's continuous digging. And then they also got the gully, so they took the gully out, which is the bit where it's going to join into the old wall of the house. And you can see they're picking out just the main sections here. They've got a fire going, which is keeping them warm at the same time, and this is kind of the main last push now to get this done. It would have been ideal if they had a machine to dig this up, but they mentioned that it'll create a lot of mess in the garden, and they're happy to do it by hand. And clearly you can see they've done a decent job, and the inspectors well, spoiler, the inspector's been and he's approved it. So you can see the broomstick up to the handle there is about 1 meter basically, and that's how deep it is all the way around of the perimeter. That's the old gully, and this is basically all the stuff that came out. So it's about 7 meters, about 18 meters worth of dirt, 1 meter deep. And I'll if you had a big skip, that might fit in one big skip with all this extra bricks and things, because that was a really bad bit. While they were digging, they were hitting bricks in the old ground, so they were taking those bricks out. They had a nice fire going, and they were burning extra pallets and stuff that were there just to keep them warm. Not ideal for the environment, but it kept them warm, so it's a heating source. You can see here's the actual me walking in what they've done, the foundations, how deep they are. I use the camera just to walk around to show you an idea of what it looks like, and it is quite deep. We had a little plank over to allow them to walk over safely, and that's like giving you an idea of how deep foundations need to be, just to make sure they meet the guidelines. And then they will put that layer of cement below it, which will allow for the foundations to be secured. But obviously the inspector comes and then approves it, then that's when that second bit would happen. So here's me trying to get under the board here, just to show you like a walk all the way around. You'll see here in some sections there were bricks sticking out, so I think in the past there was work done and they just buried the bricks in the garden, which is not great for digging. So you can see the old pipes here and all the old sections. So overall they've got the desired requirements here done now, so it's just waiting for the inspector to come. So day 4 was waiting for the inspector to come and approve it, and then day 5 is going to be when we actually start getting the cement and the pouring and deliveries. So that'll be an interesting part of the journey. If you're not already following, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you see the future updates coming through, so you can see how this goes and how we get to the point of finishing. Let me give you a sneak peek of what's happening next time. So we're going to get some deliveries come for actual materials, some sand and the blocks that go in the lower foundations. We're also going to be the cementing is going to start happening. So the foundation pouring is a pre-mixed selection coming through from a ladder. So stay tuned and subscribe for the next episode where you'll see that.